Who is Delta Squad? Delta Squad is a four-commando Republic Special Operations unit built for infiltration, sabotage, and high-value target elimination behind droid lines. Each clone commando is vat-grown on Kamino, but finished by a Mandalorian Kival Dar trainer. Delta's handler is Wayland Vow, whose regimen emphasizes silent entry, precision violence, and zero visibility movement in armor. The team works under a Spec Ops command network referred to as Advisor, which issues tasking and real-time updates independent of frontline Jedi control. Composition and roles are fixed to minimize decision lag under fire. RC-1138, Boss, is team leader and breach caller. He sets the order of tasks, assigns stations on the fly, and is the voice to Advisor. RC-1141, Fixer, is slicer and systems lead. He owns doors, locks, data pulls, and comms hygiene. RC-1262, Scorch, is demolitions. He plans charge placement, anti-armor shots, and structural takedowns. RC-1207, Sev, is marksman and counter-sniper. He covers traverses, clears long corridors, and deletes priority targets before they can warn a garrison. Cross-training is mandatory. Each trooper can perform every role if a specialist goes down, but the default lanes keep speed high and chatter low. Armor and weapons are engineered for modular problem-solving. Katarn-class commando armor layers composite plating over a powered undersuit with better shock, shrapnel, and chemical protection than standard infantry, plus a sealed helmet, HUD, that integrates squad biometrics, waypointing, and target tagging. The primary weapon is the DC-17M interchangeable weapon system, a single receiver that swaps among three barrels, standard blaster rifle for general work, anti-armor micro-grenade launcher for doors and light vehicles, and sniper/anti-materiel attachment for long-range shots. Sidearms and specialized grenades like EMP, sonic, and thermal round out the kit. Every commando carries a compact slicing suite, breaching charges, and beacons for extraction or airstrike queuing. Standard operating procedure is repeatable and timed. On approach, Sev overwatches and tags patrol cycles. Boss assigns stations. Fixer kills cameras and alarms, then inserts spikes for data capture. Scorch either shapes a charge for a silent seam cut, or sets a timed satchel to destroy the objective after exfiltration. Boss controls the tempo. Call set, throw a stun/sonic if needed. Enter, clear sectors in a fixed order, audit for secondaries, then move. Spoken comms stay short and functional because the HUD carries most of the coordination load. Mission types before their first campaign include facility penetrations, assassination of separatist coordinators, capture of encryption keys, beacon placement for artillery or air, and shipboard counterboarding drills. All assume low signature. Delta's goal is to complete the task before the garrison understands the scale of the intrusion. This doctrine and loadout lead directly into their first recorded combat arc, Geonosis, where they apply the same four-lane method against a live droid foundry under battle conditions. Geonosis. Insertion and isolation. The opening of the Clone War put heavy anti-air over the Geonosian hives, so Spec Ops split Delta's drop to reduce losses. Boss hit dust a few clicks from the target spire with only his DC-17M and a beacon. Advisor fed him a waypoint chain that avoided termite mound sightlines and crossed under anti-aircraft arcs. The first priority was to reconstitute the team. The second was to dismantle the foundry spine inside the spire so Republic armor could close. Boss moved node to node. Crashed gunship, comm relay, munitions alcove, clearing B-1 packs and Geonosian warriors to reach isolated commandos. Each pickup restored a core function. Scorch to place charges on blast doors and power conduits. Sev to delete hard targets before they could alarm the hive, and Fixer to pull codes, kill cameras, and flip internal locks. With 4 lanes active, Boss shifted from solo breach rhythm to full assign set execute cycles at every choke point, access, and internal movement. Fixer burned the outer hatches, while Sev covered long galleries with the DC-17M sniper module. Inside the spire, Delta treated each production hall as a mini-battle. Scorch seeded shaped charges on feeder lines and brace joints. Boss stacked shield stations and ammo stashes so the HUD kept rotations tight. Fixer spiked factory consoles to halt droid dispensers and harvest data on core temperatures and coolant flow. Where droidekas rolled, the sequence was ion/stun, first to collapse shields, then concentrated rifle fire. B-2s were solved with anti-armor micro-grenades to chest plates and knee joints. Enemy forces counterattacked. The Hive committed elites and a spider droid at the transit hub. Delta used elevation and cover geometry, marksman fire to the sensor mast, demo on leg joints, to immobilize the platform, then finished with focused blaster volleys, while Scorch triggered his satchels in sequence to keep it from regaining traverse. Geonosian flyers were denied by keeping arcs overlapped and forcing them to kill funnels over catwalks rather than free flight in the hull volume. Sabotage objectives and timing. The advisor's priority list was production feeders, heat exchangers, structural collars. Scorch placed delayed fuse charges on each collar. Fixer looped the plant alarms long enough to avoid a full Hive stampede until Delta had a clean exfil route. Once the last collar was wired, Boss called the countdown, and the team bounded back through pre-marked safe lanes. The charges sheared the spire's internal supports and dumped the core foundry into its own shaft. Republic gunships finished the exterior with precision strikes, now that AA coverage was thinned by the plant's power loss. Outcome and transition. With the spire's output offline, Republic armor punched through to the next ring of defenses. Delta's takeaways, silent entry, node-by-node collapse, synchronized demo, became the template for later operations, where destroying a few choke points yielded more than trading bolts with a full garrison. The missing assault ship. Advisor diverted Delta to the Acclamator-class assault ship Prosecutor, which had dropped off the grid while transiting a separatist corridor. The objective was to determine the cause of loss, recover the ship's data core, and prevent enemy capture. Because the hull's IFF was intermittent and internal comms were jammed, insertions were staggered through separate maintenance locks to reduce the risk of a single ambush killing the team. Environmental logs showed atmosphere, low power, and intermittent gravity. Conditions consistent with boarding and pirate occupation, not reactor failure. Delta encountered Trandoshan raiders operating with shipboard jammers and looted Republic weapons. Their pattern, power routed to cargo lifts, magazines half-emptied, bridge sealed from inside, indicated intent to sell the ship or hand it to a separatist buyer. Fixer cut the jammers by splicing into a comms junction. Sev cleared long corridors and hangar catwalks with the DC-17M sniper module. Scorch shaped door charges to bypass welded bulkheads without venting. Boss re-established squad SHUD links and walked the team through standard assign set execute cycles. Regain auxiliary power, secure armory, seize comms, then drive for the data core. A Munificent-class frigate arrived on docking clamps and began pushing B-1/B2 droids into the Prosecutor's hangars, converting the ship from a pirate den into a live separatist capture. Delta shifted from recovery to denial. Fixer looped internal cams to hide their movement. Sev prioritized droid controllers, and Scorch seeded satchels at reactor safeties and magazine trunks on delayed fuses to ensure that, if overrun, the ship would not be taken intact. The squad pulled the nav data core, purged sensitive keys from the bridge, and used engineering consoles to lock the docking clamps long enough to prevent an immediate undock. On Boss's call, Scorch tripped staged charges to overload coolant flow and force a controlled reactor scram into a rising fault. With the denial timer running, Delta exfiltrated along a pre-marked service spine to an exterior lock for gunship pickup. The Prosecutor was denied to separatists. The data package and incident telemetry returned to Republic analysis. The boarding pattern? Trandoshans as first-wave thieves, CIS as second-wave buyers, was confirmed for future convoy defense planning. Delta's takeaway was that jammers and low power are a boarding signature, not just a systems fault, and that re-establishing squad links and node control is the fastest way to convert a ghost ship search into a timed denial operation. Kashyyyk, Phase 1. Advisor routed Delta to Kashyyyk when Trandoshan privateers began pre-invasion shaping, snatching Wookiees, seizing tree port facilities, and staging weapons on captured platforms. Objective sequence was fixed: restore local comms, free key prisoners to rebuild resistance nodes, and clear anti-air so gunships could insert heavier units. Boss dropped the squad at the edge of a coastal settlement beneath elevated walkways. Fixer cut jammers tied into repulsor lift cargo lifts. Sev held long alleys and canopy lines with the DC-17M sniper barrel. Scorch placed shaped charges to pop door seams without collapsing entire huts. Once interior cams were looped, Boss walked an assign-set-execute cycle at each choke. Stun to break the first room, controlled bursts to delete E-Web crews, then an immediate slice of consoles to keep alarms from jumping between platforms. Wookiee cells were held in spread cages to prevent a mass breakout. Delta hit cages in order of utility. Pilots and comtechs first to restore local transport and signal. Then heavy fighters who could wield captured repeaters. Scorch seeded satchels under slaver ammo stacks. Fixer fed pre-written counter orders into the Trandoshan net so patrols collapsed toward false contacts while Wookiees armed up. With each cage opened, Boss expanded the security bubble so freed fighters could hold ladders and bridge mouths while the squad moved. Trandoshans emplaced flak turrets and missile racks aimed at the lagoon. Sev killed gunners. Scorch cut power at the rack. Then booby-trapped reloads, so any attempt to rearm spiked the mount. Fixer synchronized homing beacons to cue LAAT racetracks. Once two adjacent pads were cold, Advisor greenlit a short window for gunships to land supplies and medics, and to stage the next phase inland. Intercepted traffic referenced incoming buyers, which in this theater meant separatist droids arriving to take custody of prisoners and infrastructure. Advisor flipped the priority from pure counter-piracy to pre-invasion denial. Destroy bridges that link tree cities, disable fuel farms, and prep fallback beacons, so Wookiee elements could peel back under cover if a droid landing began. Kashyyyk, Phase 3. Intercepted traffic identified Chief Tarful among high-value prisoners being moved toward the Kachirho Tree City. Advisor reprioritized leadership extraction to restore a unified Wookiee command node and to open interior movement lines through cargo lifts and route tunnels. Boss routed Delta through route-level service galleries under the city platforms to avoid droideka kill fans on the bridges. Fixer spliced cargo lift controls to freeze slaver traffic between levels. Sev cleared vertical shafts with the DC-17M sniper module, deleting gunners and spotters on graded landings. Scorch stacked soft charges that sheared cage locks without concussing captives. Cages were dispersed across tiers to prevent a single breakout. Delta sequenced liberations to produce an immediate security bubble. Free heavies first to crew captured repeaters, signal techs second to rekey local comm relays, and pilots third to reclaim skiffs for casualty and ammo shuttles. Boss pushed freed fighters to hold flanks while the squad moved to the next tier. Slavers and CIS advance teams ringed Kachirho's lagoon pads with mixed flak pits and missile racks. Sev dropped gunners, Scorch cut power at rack bases, then booby-trapped reload troughs. Fixer synchronized LAAT homing beacons and spoofed emitter handshakes, so the first gunship wave could ride a clean corridor. With two adjacent pads cold through a full racetrack, Advisor greenlit reinforcement landings and medevac cycles. Tarful's cell re-established local command and control. Interior movement routes under Kachirho let Wookiee elements shift between platforms without crossing exposed spans. Delta received the next task, tied to the main CIS push inland. Factory and dispenser interdiction feeding the invasion. Kashyyyk Phase 4. Separatists fed the beachhead from a droid dispenser network, slaved to a compact foundry node tucked into Kachirho's industrial tiers. The node's output, B1/B2 chassis and droidicas, moved along conveyors and lift trunks to bridgehead caches. Fixer looped plant cams and pulled line schematics. Boss assigned lanes. Sev overwatch on catwalks, Scorch to structural joints and coolant trunks. The work order was power, conveyors, dispensers. Scorch planted shaped charges on brace collars that held the plant's central spine. Fixer injected a controlled overtemp into coolant logic to stall production. Sev targeted sensor masts and controller droids to blind local response. Droidicas anchored crosshauls. Delta answered with ion blaster sequencing. Ion to drop shields. Concentrated DC-17M bursts to chassis. Spider droid security arrived through a cargo aperture. Sev shot the sensor dome to degrade aim. Scorch cut knee actuators with anti-armor micro-grenades. Boss kept arcs tight to avoid stray bolts into fuel lines. With dispensers offline and braces cut, Scorch set delayed satchels to drop the core into its own shaft. Fixer spiked the yard's loader logic, so any reboot jammed cranes. Delta bounded to pre-marked safe lanes. The plant collapsed in sequence, starving the bridgehead of replacements. Advisor shifted the squad to the Kachirho main bridge, where the heaviest CIS push converged. Kashyyyk Phase 2. Intercepted. Trandoshan traffic flagged a buyer handoff. Sensor sweeps then confirmed separatist landing craft inbound on coastal vectors, with Vanguard B1/B2 platoons and droidicas. Advisor flipped Delta's tasking from counterslaver to pre-invasion interdiction, kill anti-air turrets and sensor masts that made LAAT insertions suicidal, then open a corridor for Wookiee and clone reinforcements to expand the beachhead. Node order and methods, Boss sequenced 3 target classes to collapse the local air denial bubble. Fixer sliced junction boxes to blind targeting nets. If encryption held, Scorch cut the trunk with a shaped charge placed to fall the mast away from walkways. Sev deleted gunners. Scorch killed power at the root and booby-trapped reload racks. Boss positioned captured repeaters to rake any counter-push. Fixer forced a localized shutdown by spoofing thermal overloads so the dome dropped in a controlled window for gunship passes. Contact patterns and counters. B2 squads advanced in files along bridges with droidicas as point. Delta answered with grenades to collapse personal shields. DC-17M bursts to joints and chest plates. When droidicas anchored a span, Sev targeted projector struts with the sniper module so the shields failed asymmetrically, exposing chassis to Scorch's micro-grenades without risking bridge collapse. Air corridor opening. With 2 adjacent pads cleared and emitters cycling, Advisor launched a timed LAAT racetrack. Door gunners swept canopy lines, while crews flared just long enough to kick pallets and evac wounded. Delta marked green lanes on the HUD, stairs, ladders, and spans with overlapping fire to route incoming squads to holding points without crossing fresh kill zones. Holding the window, Separatist counter-batteries tested the corridor with Walker probes and E-webs. Delta used pre-placed satchels on choke points to cut pursuit at the knees, then backfilled each blown span with Wookiee heavy fighters manning captured turrets. Once the AA grid in the sector stayed cold through a full LAAT cycle, Advisor greenlit the next phase inland. Rescue of key Wookiee leadership, and interdiction of CIS logistics nodes feeding the landing. Main bridge. CIS pushed B 2 platoons, droidicas, and spider droids across the city's primary span, with E-web nests set to rake the far half. Republic objectives were to hold the near abutment, open a corridor for Allied elements, tying in from the forest edge, and, if overrun, risk spiked, demolish spans to reset the line. Boss established firing ladders, repeaters and Wookiee heavies at the throat, Sev counter-sniping E-Web crews at midspan, Scorch pre-placing charges on pin joints under the decking. Fixer kept shield emitters cycling to block droid fire on the abutment while maintaining a comms link to gunship racetracks for immediate sweeps of canopy lines. Droidicas rolled first. Ion grenades dropped their shields. DC-17 M-bursts finished the frames. B-2S advanced in files. Sev deleted squad leaders to stall timing. Scorch used airburst micro-grenades over tightly packed sections to suppress without shredding the deck. A spider droid pressed the crown. Sev hit the sensor dome. Scorch took the knee. Boss called focused fire to finish before it could stabilize. Once CIS mass crested tipping thresholds, Boss ordered segment drops. Charges at pin joints and hangars severed selected bays, creating gaps too wide for droidicas and too unstable for B-2s. The cuts were asymmetric to preserve a narrow foot lane for friendly movement. LAATS timed passes to cover the reset. With the near side secure and gaps blown, Advisor cleared Allied elements, including Jedi Command, through Delta's corridor to the next engagement area. Delta received a rear guard, tasking to peel back through the city's inner tiers. Loss of contact. As CIS pressure mounted and friendly elements retrograded through Kachirho's interior, Delta covered the peel with bounding withdrawals. One pair moves while the other covers, then swaps. Enemy composition shifted to mixed B-2 squads with droidica cover and Trandoshan mercs exploiting side ladders. Boss assigned Sev to high-cover counter-sniper on a flanking gallery, while the squad crossed a service span to the next hold. Contact reports from Sev included multiple targets and danger close. Seconds later, Sev's channel cut. No biometrics, no locator ping, consistent with armor damage or a comms hard kill. Advisor issued immediate extraction orders tied to a shrinking LAAT window, and the risk of encirclement if Delta remained. Boss queried a search. Advisor denied since there was no spare lift to retrieve an isolated commando under heavy fire. Boss executed the order. Fixer and Scorch held the last choke point. Boss covered the final board. The gunship lifted with 7-Delta Sev, marked MIA. The rearguard held long enough for Allied elements to clear Kachirho's core. Delta lost its marksman and a quarter of its cross-trained capacity. Advisor flagged the MIA and moved the team to recovery and retasking with the slot unfilled. Later, war sightings. Kachirho stabilized under combined Wookiee-Republic control for the moment. CIS forces regrouped inland. Delta, down one, cycled through debrief and kit audit, while Advisor reassigned them to black operations, consistent with their pre-Kashyyyk profile. Low signature penetrations, node kills, and extractions beyond frontline Jedi oversight. During the Deveron incident, a Republic Commando unit identified as Delta Squad recovered fallen Jedi from a massacre site and delivered them for honors. The tasking matched their profile: rapid insertion, body recovery under threat, and silent exfiltration, confirming the unit's continued use for sensitive missions late in the war. Sev remained missing in action with no confirmed recovery in theater records. Delta's structure persisted as a three-man element under Boss with cross-training covering the marksman lane as needed. Advisor's files show the team continuing behind-the-lines work through the war's final phase.